Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Ooh. Tom, I don't know what we did, but this morning that intro was super loud. Did you notice that?
Maybe your volume is up.
I don't think so, but hopefully it wasn't that loud for everyone.
Well, it'll wake them up on a Monday morning.
There you go. That's it. I like it.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Brush. That's Bob Graham. And this is today's Antidote, our daily broadcast where we try to help you identify one thing. We'll talk about a topic and hopefully we'll come up with one thing that might help you today, might help you next week, or might not help you till next year, but it can add to who and what you are. And since what really makes this is the conversation that we have and the comments that are provided. So please feel free to share your comments. We will incorporate them as best we can into the conversation, as well as your one thing. So if you have one thing, what's real for you is going to be different than what's real for us. And so please feel free to share your one thing, whether that's if you're watching it live or if you're watching it either inside the Ring of Renegades or on another Facebook page. Please share your one thing, because we know that when you put out what is real, it's going to benefit someone else because they are looking for that to help them continue to take their next step on their own unique journey to success. So, Bob,
Bravo.
What's that?
I love the way you do those introductions. I just sit here. I'm in awe. You've got it down.
Well, we've only been doing it 260 times, right? So we should,
yeah. We're in a routine.
Right. Just about time that we need to change it, right?
Yeah. It's so true. The entrepreneurial challenge. Right way gets good, change it.
And the question usually is what triggers change?
Oh, well, I will tell you what it is for me. One negative comment. That'll trigger me. You know that about me. And I think it's funny. We should define what triggers are. To me, triggers are things that take me off of my chosen path and force me to confront things I may or may not find useful long term. How's that for a nice broad definition?
Yeah,
so, for instance, a trigger could be a good trigger. Hey, someone says, hey, I really like the way you did that workshop. You should do more of those workshops. I've got a friend at another company. That would be a good trigger. I think there are good triggers, but I also think there are negative triggers. Someone going, Bob, I really don't like the way you do that broadcast every morning. It's not really useful to me. So because of that, it would trigger me into questioning what I do, questioning what we do. I'd call you, we'd have a discussion, we'd debate it, we'd debate considering change, we might make a change, a knee-jerk reaction. And often that's what I find for me. When I'm triggered, I make knee-jerk reactions. I jump at one thing. And I'll give you an example that I saw so often when I was working on website development. We'd be working on someone's website. It would get done. It would go live. Within the first week, someone would complain because they always went to the box in the upper right, and now the box wasn't in the upper right. It had moved. And they would go, I can't find the box. And the owner of the company or one of their key employees would call and say, we need to move the box back. Give it a couple weeks. We're going to need some adjustment time. And if I could get them to not be triggered by that, like that box being in the upper right, not being there anymore, causes the whole website to be completely garbage. If I could get them to wait a couple weeks, they'd forget all about it. And the box would stay where it was, and no one would ever know the difference.
Yeah, I think the challenge, right, is understanding why do we have them? What, again, going back to what they are. I think of them as typically it's some mention, sight, hearing of something that you had an emotional response to last night. It's funny. I was laying in bed this morning and I was I must have been thinking about our topic because it triggered a memory of something. And I was like, wow, man, I haven't thought about that in forever. And why would that come up? And what would be the reason that would be a part of my thought process? And so I think that's maybe the challenge for us, is that they're all around us in various different ways. And I guess it's just because for what is real for us, it ignites something in our past, something that makes up our knowledge, experience, and perspective that we have a reaction to, or a recalling of this instance and what happened and why it happened. And I think it's funny. I think we can have them as reoccurring, like you talked about, like in a negative thought, or they can just be a one-time, hey, I did this long, long ago. This happened, and now I'm back into it again. And it's interesting. I wish I knew more about the mind and why that one thing brings back something that we haven't thought about in years, or something that, as opposed to something that we think about all the time, like a negative thought or feedback. Sadly, just because that's the way the world is, we get that regularly, right? If you're ever putting anything out there, you're getting both. And how we look at that feedback could trigger something that's going on in our head and may force us to then change what we are thinking about doing. And so it just intrigues me how our mind works in relation to these types of activities.
I'm not an expert on the mind, but it would
not.
No, certainly not my own and not anyone else's. So that pretty much narrows it.
Okay.
But I do think what those triggers are doing for us is, on some really deep level, it's protection. I had this stimuli or stimulus. It occurred. This is the result. It probably was negative. And because of that, I have a signal the same thing's coming now. I don't want the same negative result. So I'm going to stop the person. So it's just like if someone walks down the street and they've got a gun and they point it at you, you're going to react. This is no different in some ways than that. And if you had a gun pointed at you 13 years ago in a dark alley, and you walk down the same dark alley today, I guarantee your mind goes, whoa, 13 years ago, gun pointed at me. I don't want to go down this alley. It's the same thing with the trigger. We don't want to go through it again. We are trying to save ourselves the pain, the frustration, the worry, the aggravation, and most of all, I think probably the fear of getting it wrong.
It's interesting that you phrased that as,
oh boy,
it's usually a negative thing. And
yes.
then all of your triggers were about pain. Rather than, aren't there likely triggers that bring back positive feedback? Yet you chose to go with the negative side of that.
Yeah, I guess when I hear a certain song, or we were watching a movie the other day, and it reminded me of a girl that I dated one summer. There weren't that many girls, and there were plenty of summers, not that many girls, so it was easy to remember which one. But the song and the movie reminded me of the girl. So that was a positive trigger. I hadn't thought about her in years. So yeah, I guess there can be positive triggers. What would be a positive trigger in business, Tom?
Well, I think a positive trigger in business is doing something that brings results that we have, right? So if I go to a convention and, excuse me, and I have a booth in the, trade show area that we probably won't ever have again. No, I'm just kidding.
Trigger.
And I get a ton of I get a ton of either prospects, maybe clients, maybe sales. I'm like, huh. And then I see an advertisement for another trade show for another demographic that I serve. Wouldn't that be hey, I had this great experience the last time. Maybe I ought to consider this again because I could get the great results one more time.
I like that. Tim says, good morning, Tim, by the way. Tim jumps in. Triggers are usually associated with negative emotions, but that's not always the case. It's a matter of focus, right? I like that. A matter of focus. You could focus on the negative ones or you could focus on the positive ones.
Well, it's interesting. I'm curious about that. Why are triggers usually associated with negative emotions?
Well, think of the name itself. That whole idea of trigger in and of itself tends to be not a positive thing. We don't typically pull our gun out and get our finger on the trigger unless we have a reason to shoot something, usually not a good thing.
So you think that before that the word was created when guns were created?
No, I think it's come to mean something different. And if you think about a trigger, it does focus us and we do take aim, right?
Yeah, sure.
You know, when we're triggered, if you trigger me, all my focus goes to that one little thing. Like you are if you're trying to shoot a gun and you're trying to hit a target. You're focused on that little hole or that little circle in the middle of the target. You're not looking at 6 feet to the left, 6 feet to the right. You've got laser focus because you're trying to get whatever you're shooting to hit it. I got to tell you, the gun talk is way out of my realm and not the most comfortable thing.
Well, it just is.
It triggers me.
Yeah, I guess. Certainly does. It is interesting that when you shared your example, it was that it usually brings up negative things. And Tim's comment is that triggers are usually associated with negative emotions, which is that inherently in us, or is that every person is different? They look at a trigger and, again, rather than looking at the negative, think about, all right, well, what did I learn? What did I take? Okay, this is reminding me of this, instead of, wow, that was really negative. What it was like, hey, this is what I learned from that. You know, this is, as I think about this, hey, I walked down this alley. This is what I thought. Maybe I shouldn't turn down this alley again. Or I went to this trade show and it didn't go well. Or I put out this marketing thing and then 3 years later I see, oh yeah, I remember doing that. That didn't work so well. What if it was like, this is what I learned from it? Well, rather than taking it as negative or positive, just as, what information am I recalling that now is more a part of what's real for me today than what it has been until it was brought up?
It's funny, you remind me of a couple of the silly ones I've heard over the years. I was working with someone doing some hiring years ago, and there was a great candidate for the job, and the woman had red hair. And this guy said he wouldn't hire a red-haired person because his first girlfriend was red-haired and she broke his heart. And the connection of the two and him, I mean, it was like this is going to happen. He was triggered by the red hair. And he didn't know it. And I think we all are triggered in that way sometimes, in a negative way, by things that are just out, that we make a causal connection between this happened one time and it's going to happen again. And I think as I get older and think more, the causal connections are not as closely associated as we like to think in our head.
So let me ask you a question. Do you have photos of your family up in your house?
Some.
Any family?
Yeah. Some. You're asking the wrong person. I'm not a photo guy. So I'm literally trying to think. I know there's a picture of my father. I know there's a picture of my parents. Yeah.
So what happens when you look at those photos? Why do we hang photos of our family?
Well, so it triggers us in a positive way. Yeah. When I see a picture of my father, I remember him and I miss him because he died a while ago. And
right.
Yeah.
Or you have something happen, that you're like, that was something that my mother said, my father said, my grandmother said, my sister, best friend, whatever, that is triggering you back to something or some emotion or some memory or some information, knowledge, whatever, that now is brought to the forefront. And so I understand that the word, I guess, is associated with things that people think of as negative, but it's interesting that you could almost argue there are probably as many triggers out there that create quote unquote positive emotional feelings as there are negative emotional feelings. Just interesting that we focus on the negative more often.
Makes sense. Let me add some more Tim's comments into the mix. When you say someone got triggered, it's almost always associated with the negative response. It's just what it means. Then he said, that being said, we can always reframe it. But if you ask 100 people, I would say at least 98 would say that being triggered is not a positive thing. Because, I think there's a contrast, right, between being triggered and being reminded. If I go up and see the picture of my father when I graduate from college, that's a reminder of a good day. That's not, we don't think of that as a trigger. I think a trigger would be, there's a picture of my Mini Cooper being crashed. I saw a picture of my Mini Cooper being crashed in my photos the other day. And I was like, that was a negative thing. What was I thinking? Could I have done anything differently? Was I, that was not a positive thing. Right. And then I see, hey, good morning, John Cerisi. Good to see you. And Steve says, not to get pedantic here. I wouldn't even know how one gets pedantic. So that's okay. But I think just using the word trigger makes it a negative thing. What Tom is talking about is a prompt or something that points you in a positive direction. I think people also relate trigger to negative experience because if it does have that relationship to firearms. And when we are triggered, we can feel like we are the gun going off. And then Tim says, I love the comments, by the way. Keep them coming, people. Bob has it exactly right. Hey, that's my favorite comment. You aren't triggered by positive experiences. You're triggered by traumatic events. And let me go back.
Isn't that a positive trigger right there?
Nice. I think that I really do think, Tom, Tim's right. If we showed this to 100 people and said, hey, we're going to talk about triggers all week on our program, I think 98, 99, maybe even 100 would say, whoa, so you're going to talk about this, and they'd all be negative. Maybe the other side is memories, reminders. Right? I mean, if you remind me, hey, Bob, last time you talked to this client, you forgot to bring up this thing that we were going to talk to them about. Oh, okay. That doesn't make me go, I'm inferior, I'm lousy, I forgot something really important. But if you said to me, hey, Bob, when are you going to tell them this thing that we've been talking about for 3 weeks? Oh, shoot, you're right. I'm inferior, Tom's smarter than me, he knows things better than me, and I go down that negative journey. And I think we do it. I think we do it all the time. I think we get triggered by the slightest thing. The tone of someone's email. The fact that, I got triggered this morning. Someone texted me before 7:30. I'm like, really? Come on. That was a trigger to me. On the other hand, it's a client. They need help. They're reaching out to me. There's the positive side, but that's not the first place I typically go. I think that's why when we talk about what they are, it's really the discussion is not so much what they are, it's what they do to us, right? That's where we're going to go for the rest of the week. But before we do that, Tom, a couple of things. I'm ready. One, what's happening? Thursday. Yes, Thursday, right?
Yes, good try. You started
Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, we are doing the Renegade Roundup. This is a networking event that is designed to, thank you for clearing that, designed to give you a chance to really get to know other renegades. These are people carving their own path. They're finding their way. They're making it happen the way they want to make it happen. They're not being deterred by things. We're going to gather this group and we're going to talk through just getting to know each other. And we ask you questions that make it fun, make it a little different than your typical networking event, because Tom and I really believe that there's the know, like, and trust factor that Bob Berg pointed out. And we want to help you get to know, like, and trust the people around you. And we want this community to support each other, doing business together, which is happening, supporting each other emotionally, supporting each other with information, supporting each other with motivation, and most of all, to Tom and me, supporting each other with celebrations. when someone has success, whatever that success is to them, and going, oh, that's awesome. That's great. Wow. You must be so proud. And that's what we're trying to build here in the Ring of Renegades. And the networking event, our Renegade Roundup, gives us a chance to really build that, foster that sense of community.
Nice. That's okay. You want to go to the other things that are coming up this week?
Yeah, we've got clubhouses a couple times this week, right?
Yes.
Tom and I have dipped our feet into the clubhouse experience. We've got a clubhouse today at 11 a.m. Eastern time, right?
Correct.
If you're on Clubhouse, which is iPhone or iPad only these days, go to Clubhouse, and we have an event today at 11 a.m. where we will be talking about your intentions for the week. It's a chance to hop on with us and talk about what you hope to get accomplished this week. Give you a little bit of accountability. I do know there is neuroscientific research that suggests that when we say something out loud to another person or a group of people, it makes the chances of it happening significantly greater. And then on Friday, and I forget what time, Tom.
11:30.
11:30 a.m. Friday, we will be doing another clubhouse where we will be celebrating what people have accomplished over the week, right?
And the lessons they learned.
Sorry, that's it. And the lessons they learned. Totally. I wrote notes and I left them upstairs.
That's all right.
And Wednesday we have one as well, right?
Correct. 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. So bookending the week. So if you are on Clubhouse, our goal is to just give people more opportunity to talk about aspects of their business and build their business and get the support and community that so many of us seem to be struggling through. So Tom, with all that, man, we got a lot going on. What's that one thing?
I'm going to, for me, because I was thinking about this just as we got into some of those things. When we talk about triggers and what they are, and maybe I'm completely off on this, but this is what's real for me. They are things that ignite action. And if we don't think about the results of that action, other than what have we learned, do those triggers become less negative? So maybe the trigger is just something that ignites action. That's my one thing for today.
Okay, I like that.
Not a negative. It's just something that we have a knowledge, experience, or perspective about. And it reminds us of that, brings back some of that from where we've been.
I want to get Tim's comment up here because I'm going to use pedantic at least once this weekend in other contexts. Great word, Steve. And Tim also says, make sure you put your clubhouse schedule on the Ring of Renegades. Good reminder for us. Yeah, should do that.
I'm glad this isn't the SAT because I would fail on what pedantic means. That word always throws me. So,
yeah, that's one I could define if I had to, but I'm planning as soon as we finish the program to look it up. But that's great. I mean, I think it's the right word in the right situation. So, Tom, as we close today, any last thoughts?
No, my last thought is that if you've enjoyed this conversation or ones like it, we hope that you will join us inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where we are help building a community of individuals who want to have conversations like this, want to talk about those things, want to be different. They want to break out of the status quo and away from that echo chamber that we keep hearing. It's easy to do. Just go to Facebook and search for Ring of Renegades. And then it is a private group because we want this to be a community of support. So all you need to do is tell us that you'd like to join and why that you're a renegade. And you can become a part of this growing community. So we hope that we will see you inside of the Ring of Renegades. And if you're struggling with what to do about triggers and what happens when they show up, a good option might be, and especially if they're showing up regularly, might be to join our Renegade Success Network, where we are helping individuals take that next step so that they can move closer to the next destination along their own unique journey to success. So I'm going to share some information about that in a minute. So we hope that we will see you maybe at Clubhouse at 11 o'clock or inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we will see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, and we will see you soon. Are you struggling to make your vision a reality? Are you stuck and don't know what to do next? Are fear and doubt holding you back? The Renegade Success Network will help you determine the next steps on your pathway. Here is some of what you will get. Create your pathway call to start you on a better path. Unlimited laser solution sessions to keep you from getting stuck. Nurture your network events to build your network with other successful leaders. Monthly Renegade challenges to prepare you for what lies ahead. The Renegade Success Vault, giving you access to videos, tools, and tips on specific topics anytime you need them. And the Renegade Success Network community, an exclusive Facebook group of like-minded renegades, all working towards achieving their goals. You have a choice. Do it yourself and fumble forward slowly and alone. Or join the Renegade Success Network and be part of a community built to help you find your own pathway. Join today at renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Act now and jumpstart your journey on your own pathway to success.